The Last Messenger of Kabul. Historical fiction, Second Anglo-Afghan War, 1878 to 1880. Prologue. The Last Ride, 1878. The desert wind howled through the Khyber Pass, carrying the scent of war and death. A lone Afghan rider, his white tunic stained with blood, urged his exhausted horse forward. Behind him, shadows moved, swift and silent, closing in. He clutched a letter, a missive that could change the fate of a nation, close to his chest. An arrow whistled through the air. It struck deep into his shoulder. He gasped, his vision blurring, but he pushed on. His horse stumbled as hooves pounded the dirt behind him. The pursuers were close. Too close. With his last breath, the rider whispered, "Beware the traitor in Kabul," before slumping from his mount. The letter slipped from his grasp, lost to the wind as darkness claimed him. Chapter 1. A Call to War. Captain James Ashford stood in the command tent at Peshawar, a map of Afghanistan spread before him. The flickering oil lamp cast jagged shadows across the canvas walls. General Frederick Roberts leaned over the table, his expression grim. "Kabul is in turmoil," Roberts said, tracing a gloved finger along the map. "Sir Ali has fled. His son, Yaqub Khan, claims to rule, but the tribes stir against us. We need intelligence. And you, Ashford, will get it." James adjusted his uniform, the weight of duty pressing upon him. "And my cover?" "A Persian merchant," Roberts replied. "You'll travel to Kabul, assess the situation, and locate our missing agent." He hesitated. "And one more thing, the letter. If you find any trace of it, retrieve it at all costs." James nodded, gripping the hilt of his saber. War was coming, and he was marching straight into its heart. Chapter 2. An Afghan Warrior's Burden. Mir Wazir crouched atop a rocky outcrop, his hawk-like eyes surveying the valley below. British soldiers moved in formation, their red coats stark against the dusty landscape. He clenched his fists. These were the men who had taken his father's life. "We should strike now," growled a warrior beside him. "No," Wazir murmured. "We wait. Let them think they own this land. When they grow complacent, we shall remind them, Afghanistan bows to no one." As the sun dipped below the mountains, he swore vengeance upon the invaders. But he did not yet know that his greatest enemy was not the British, it was within his own ranks. Chapter 3. The Shadow of Kabul. In the bustling streets of Kabul, a woman moved like a whisper between market stalls. Farah was neither fully British nor fully Afghan. She was a shadow that danced between worlds. She adjusted her headscarf as she neared the palace gates. Inside, Yaqub Khan played his dangerous game, caught between the British and his rebellious people. Farah had her own game to play. A slip of parchment burned in her hand. The words upon it could shift the balance of power. She had to decide. Deliver it to the British? Or let it fall into the hands of the resistance? A voice murmured in her ear. "Choose wisely, Farah. Kabul's fate rests on you." Chapter 4. Journey through the Khyber Pass. Ashford rode with a small caravan, his disguise as a Persian merchant holding for now. He spoke little, watching the traders and Afghan guides around him. The path through the pass was treacherous, and every shadow could hide an ambush. A gunshot rang out. The caravan halted as armed men emerged from the cliffs above. Bandits, or something worse. Ashford's hand went to his concealed pistol. He was about to find out. Chapter 5. The Siege of Ali Masjid. British cannons roared as Afghan warriors fired from the fortress walls. Mir Wazir stood among his men, his rifle raised. The British advance was relentless. He turned to his closest companion. "Tonight we make our stand. If we fall as free men." As night fell, the defenders prepared for one final, desperate fight. Chapter 6. The Secret Letter. In Kabul, Farah handed the parchment to a hooded figure in a dark alley. "You know what to do," she whispered. As she walked away, she felt a chill run down her spine. Someone was watching. Someone who knew her secret. Chapter 7. The Betrayal at Sherpur. The British stronghold at Sherpur was under siege. Ashford barely made it inside the gates before the Afghan forces encircled the compound. He had seen enough. Rebellion was brewing, and Yaqub Khan was losing control. He turned to his superior. "We are not safe here. Kabul is about to explode." Chapter 8. The Kabul Massacre. The uprising began. British officers were dragged from their quarters, and the streets ran red. Ashford, injured, barely escaped the carnage. Farah, torn between loyalty and survival, had to make a choice: help Ashford or disappear into the chaos. Mir Wazir, leading a band of fighters, felt the weight of war upon his shoulders. He had set out for vengeance, but now he questioned if bloodshed was the only path. Chapter 9. The Escape from Kabul. As the city burned, Ashford and Farah fled through the secret tunnels beneath the palace. Wazir, realizing the greater threat lay elsewhere, followed a different path. They would meet again on opposite sides of history. Chapter 10. The Last Stand at Gandamak. The remnants of the British forces, retreating from Kabul, were surrounded in the snow-covered hills of Gandamak. Ashford, wounded but defiant, fired his last shot as Afghan warriors closed in. He knew his fate was sealed. Mir Wazir, watching from a ridge, felt no triumph. Only the cold truth that Afghanistan would never bow. Epilogue. The Forgotten Letter, 1880. Years later, in the ruins of Kabul, an old letter was found. It spoke of betrayal, of lost loyalties, of a war that changed everything. But history had already been written in blood. The end.